some of you that watch my videos a little bit, you're probably tired of me talking about this subject, but it always comes back up and I want to talk about it, which is this whole concept of deficiencies and the idea that if you change to some restricted diet that you might face the potential of a deficiency. And when you ask people what deficiencies they're talking about, they bring up things that have never really been issues for anyone in the history of the entire human race at any point, ever on any diet at any time. Like selenium deficiency, zinc deficiency, I don't know, chromium deficiency, whatever, just weird, random, made up things that have probably been, they're probably told about something like this from like a naturopath or someone that was selling them supplements or whatever, some supplement company or whatever, or someone involved in that, and that's all sort of. I understand that if you've come from that background and that's what you've seen or been shown, but when we take a broader look at deficiencies in the human race, let's look at the diseases, let's look at the problems people have with their health. And what we find is not really a deficiency issue, but a deficiency of excess of nutrients, excess of things, being a much worse problem. Because humans are actually much far better adapted to deal with situations or time of deficiency than with times of excess, because most animals don't have a big chance of eating a massive excess of food all the time, because of the competitive nature of the natural world. You know, there's a limited amount of calories out there, there's all these animals trying to eat, so you wouldn't have had a lot of opportunities to be eating an excess of nutrients, but human beings have put themselves in that position. The major killers are definitely related to diet and definitely related to the excess of the wrong things in the diet. If we look at deficiencies, firstly we can look at historical issues of deficiency that we've seen in the human race, and there are a few major problems that happened. But funnily enough, when we look at them, it's never to do with people eating a fruit-only diet or a mostly fruit diet or anything like that. In fact, it's the opposite. It's always the opposite. It's people not eating fruit that is causing many of these problems. It's people not living a healthy lifestyle in many ways. So if you look up under dietary deficiency diseases that affected populations of people, you find scurvy, which is very hard to get, very hard to get scurvy unless your diet is very limited. These are all very hard to get unless your diet's really limited. I mean, even people on the standard diet don't get these deficiencies. Even people on junk food diets don't get these deficiencies. Even people like the carnivore diet, they don't get these deficiencies. So they're very hard to get. You have to be very limited in your food supply. But vitamin C deficiency, scurvy, beriberi, which is a vitamin B1 deficiency, I think, and pellagra, which is another deficiency. And then you've got night blindness in Africa, vitamin A deficiency. I'm trying to think. All of these happen with people eating cooked food diets. All of them happen with people eating starch-based diets. All of them, and a lot of them had access to meat and everything. So it was clearly not that was a problem. And a lot of them, by the way, also had access to vegetables, interestingly enough. It was a lack of fruit. It's a lack of fruit is a problem for vitamins. This is why it's vitamin deficiency. Notice how this isn't mineral deficiency, it's vitamin deficiency because of a lack of fruit, which is our best source of all these vitamins. People go on and on about mineral deficiency, but what ones? What ones? The one that people are concerned about is iodine, and that's kind of like doesn't happen anymore. It happened for a short period of time in certain places where people once again had a limited amount of food from an area that had happened to be barren in iodine in the soil. not because of depletion of the soil, nothing to do with that, because of natural, a completely natural situation where the soils in those particular areas were either flooded or whatever, and that led to there being no iodine in the soil, less iodine in the soil for a while. And for some reason people have translated this into there's a worldwide iodine deficiency in the soil. Madness, absolute madness. Now we have food and soil from all over the world. So the thing that's often connected with this, but mineral deficiencies we don't see. And vitamin deficiencies we don't see. We don't see them. Ain't happening. Certainly ain't happening on a fruit-based diet. But people will go on and on about these things. I do think that B12 is something to be concerned about, vitamin D, something to be concerned about. So if you're not going out into the sun, if you're completely unaware of B12, you want to learn about that. At the same time, it's unlikely if you're experiencing any symptoms. The chances that it's B12 deficiency is once again not very likely. But people have diagnosed themselves with B12 deficiency, convinced themselves they've got it, taking the B12 supplement, felt better. It's called placebo effect. But once again, you're unlikely to get that as well. Especially if you just started on a vegan diet. Especially if you just started on the raw vegan diet. It's unlikely. And there's different levels of how much you should have, and you should have this amount. The body adapts to these things. The body is able to adapt to different levels of nutrients. The idea would be that a pure vegetarian or vegan would get no B12, and B12 would be so low that you wouldn't be able to get it. But we still don't see that a lot. We don't see actual people saying, I was diagnosed B12 deficiency. I had pernicious anemia, B12 deficiency. We don't see that very much. And you could say, well, maybe that's because people deal with it before it happens, and that could be the case. It's just not a big thing to worry about if you're transitioning to a vegan diet. It's something to be aware of. But most people just get paranoid, and they'll take B12 out of pure paranoia. And they'll wake up in the middle of the night and feel some pain in their foot or something and think it's B12 deficiency. I understand that. I get it, but most likely it wasn't. Now, what in the minds of a lot of people that think about deficiency, who believe in this lifestyle, what do they think is the reason? And they bring up this mythical concept, this ludicrous concept that the soil is depleted around the world. This is a meme, this is a story that's been shared, this is a marketing pitch, a sales pitch, a conspiracy plot, whatever you want to put it. It's a way of trying to manipulate people into buying supplements. That's all it is. That's all it is. Nothing more to that. There's nothing more to that. Is there a thing called soil depletion? There is a thing called soil depletion. It happens for a whole number of different reasons. Places turned into deserts, and then you can't grow food. But that's not the same as the idea that there's a farmer out there whose soil is depleted, who's just growing stuff in the soil that's depleted. Because the farmer's got other soil, he can buy in soil, he can put more nutrients in his soil. He's got a lot of options there. They're not incompetent fools that are just like, oh, there's some rubbish soil, let's try and grow something on that. They're not that dumb. They actually do want stuff to grow. Like, they're not trying to risk it. And regardless, you're probably getting food from all over the place. So you're getting all sorts of different food, different places, different levels of soil, different types of soil. So it would be an issue if you only had soil from one area, and that one area was just happened to be, didn't have particular nutrients in it, whatever, for whatever reason. That's probably the case in some areas of the world, but that's not you, and that's not me, and that's not basically anyone. You're getting food from all over the place. There is no science to show the soils are depleted. I mean, there's none. I mean, and I've asked people to share this with me. They've not been able to share. There is some articles that suggest that the nutrients in food have come down, but the reality is with those articles is that they're comparing apples with pears in a sense. They're comparing different varieties of food. It's usually in different measuring techniques. There's also the fact that the foods have been bred to be bigger or selected to be bigger, and therefore actually higher in nutrition but lower in nutrition in terms of concentration because there's more water and more carbohydrate. But if there was an issue, we would see widespread crises of deficiencies. We don't see that. We just don't see that. Even with people eating so unhealthy, we don't see these problems turning up. So it's not something to worry about. It's a sales pitch for selling your product. It's not real. It really isn't real. And it's one of these things again that when it comes to health, everyone is looking to distract themselves away from the real thing, which is changing your diet. You have to change your diet. You have to change your diet. You have to change what you eat. Everyone's trying to move away from that. Everyone's trying to find out something to eat that's not fruits and vegetables. You know, everyone's looking to find the other thing. Oh, I need to eat that though. Okay, fruits and vegetables, whatever, but I need to eat X because of my omega-3s. I need to eat this because of this. They want an excuse to eat all these other different things, rather than zoning in on the thing that's the most healthiest thing. So deficiencies on a fruit-based diet, we've got no evidence of that whatsoever. Deficiencies on a vegan diet, we would say that vegans get low B12, and you might want to be concerned about that. In the northern hemisphere and probably down south as well, you can have vitamin D problems if you're not getting your sunlight for sure. So it's worth being concerned about that. If you're working indoors all the time and all the rest of it, you might want to get that checked. But that's a blanket actually recommendation across the population. So that's, as I said, it's another video, and it's just people have this assumption there's this deficiency. Well, it just has to be deficient. Yes, your diet is deficient. It's deficient in heart disease, cancer, diabetes, stroke, rheumatoid arthritis. Like, it's deficient in all that stuff for sure. But that's an advantage. Anyway, one of the clear dietary excesses we have is just people overeating on calories. And calories is really the most important nutrient to focus on in any diet. Like, what is your caloric intake? And if you're eating too much, you get overweight. If you're eating too little, you're underweight, and that's a problem. And but we don't really think about it in this world because we just assume that people get enough all the time, or eat the right amount. It's not something to think about. On a raw vegan diet, we have to think about it. We have to be concerned, and a lot of people don't eat enough calories. And if you don't eat enough calories, you're just setting yourself up for failure on this lifestyle, long term. However, in saying all that, we're starting a weight loss group, so if you want to be part of that, and that will involve a controlled restriction of calories for the purpose of cutting down weight, but using more raw foods to help with that process. There'll be a link down below if you want to read more about the online weight loss group that's coming up and be part of that. I'll also be running the Beginner's Guide to Raw Vegan Diet course. I'll be running that again in a few weeks' time, and hope some of you can be part of that. And if any of you are interested in come to UK Fruit Fest, go to fruitfest.co.uk/registration. Okay, thank you very much.